Hey YouTube, Big Guy Idle here. We're getting ready to do an alternator on a Ford Expedition. One thing I want to kind of keep in mind for you guys is that if you are doing this as a self-repair, keep your old alternator and be sure to return it back in the box of your new alternator back to your parts store, because it does have a core charge on it and get a little money back. A lot of people forget about that and they lose out, and sometimes these can be like 10, 15, 20 bucks depending on the parts store and how good of a core it's got. So anyways, we're getting ready to start this. Let's get to it. ...2010 Ford Expedition. Having issues keeping the battery charged. We checked the charge with a digital reader while it was running, and it only had 11 volts. You want your alternator putting out 14 volts. So we're gonna get inside there. It's just right on top. You can see through there. Gotta get all this out of the way and we'll show you how. .8mm clips. Now we can see that alternator. Something else, before you start messing with this alternator, okay, before you start taking any of these electrical connections, disconnect your battery. Even if your battery is pretty much dead like this one is, you want to disconnect it because it's still going to have a charge and you might get shocked or worse. Okay, battery's just hooked on by an 8mm bolt. Phew, it was on there tight. Now with this cable off, we can safely go after that alternator. 1/2 inch on the tensioner, we gotta get that belt out of the way. And I always try to leave the belt on as much as possible on other areas. Okay. Disconnect your electrical connector. Okay. 13mm. Now some people try to leave these clips on. I don't like fighting them, so I'm gonna go ahead and pop them off. So now we got these 10mm bolts on this bracket. Go ahead and pop them off. All right, so we got that bracket off, got our electrical connections off. Now we're gonna come down here to the bottom. We got two 10mm bolts holding the bottom of the alternator. Okay. Got them both out. It lifts up just like that. It's one of the easier alternators to do on just about any vehicle, really. Okay. Got our new alternator. 13mm bolt. Okay, and actually what I'm going to do is start the bolts back in, the bottom bolts, to help me line these holes. You see they got little slots here. Okay, little slots that you're allowed to just set it on top like that. So I'm going to go ahead and start both of them. Makes it a lot easier to keep this thing aligned. Okay. Let me just tighten it back up. Make sure they're pretty tight. Okay. Put your bracket back on. Now, just a simple reconnecting our electricals. Yep. That clip's not holding very good. It did break on me a little bit, so I'm gonna take a zip tie that down. Okay, now we gotta get our belt back on. Now, it helps if you keep your belt roughly in the same spot and you only take it off the alternator. That way, there's very few things to line up. If you are gonna take the belt all the way off, it's always a good rule to draw some type of diagram to make sure you put it on back correctly, because these can go on the wrong way. Okay. Just go around, feel, make sure the belt is in its grooves. Everything feels okay. Air intake hose back on. Tighten up the clips, 8mm. here. And then reattach the battery. As you can hear, no sparky. This battery is pretty dead. We're going to charge it up and try to see if we can save the customer some money. Yeah. Oh, that's a 7mm. That's why I don't fit. I always get the right tool, kids. Now, some people tighten these down. I've been nosing way too hard. All you want is the cable to be secure and so that they're not moving around at all. Both of them pretty secure. We're going to go ahead and jump start this thing, and I'll show you the readings you need to have. Okay, so we have jump started. You can hear it running. We're going to test the voltage, make sure that alternator is putting out enough to charge this battery. So what I have is just a fuse or electric tester that's digital. Actually has a digital readout on there. These aren't very good at testing electrical issues inside the cab, but for an alternator, they're good enough, okay? They're good enough to test if you got power or something. And it does read voltage. So we're gonna go over here. All right, 13.4, that's what you want. So I can keep a solid connection, okay? And that's exactly what we want. It's charging the battery. Some of them will be up to 14, but 13.4, 13.5, that's the ideal number you want. Anything below 13, the alternator is not putting out enough charge, and either something else is going on or you happen to get a bad alternator. But that's for our 2010 Ford Expedition. That's how you do an alternator.